Okay, I'm Dolores Cannon, and I'm a hypnotherapist. I have been doing hypnosis for 40 years, and I've been doing past life therapy and past life regression for 30 years. And I've been involved in the UFO phenomena for 20. So I've been doing a lot of research, and I've done thousands and thousands of cases and thousands of clients. So this has resulted in my writing 15 books about the work that I have discovered and all the information I've come across. Not only past lives, but also the UFO phenomena. And I've come up with theories that no one else has found, because mine is always positive anyway, have nothing to do with the negativity. But I have found the answers to why they're coming and why they are here and why they are doing all of the things to the people. And it's not negative the way some people think. Once you understand the phenomena and understand why they are doing what they're doing, it makes sense and it becomes very clear. Because a lot of the clients I have say once they find out the real reason behind it, they say, I can live with that. It makes sense and it's not negative. So I'm here for this Congress because I'm a speaker, but I have been coming to this Congress, I think 11 years now I've been speaking here. And every time I get a new book, they ask me to come back and talk about that. So I've gone from the UFO phenomena, it began to expand into metaphysics that was very complicated metaphysics. So that's why after the book, I've written 4 books on UFOs, but the main one that chronicles my 20 years of research is called The Custodians. But that began to go away from UFOs into more metaphysical information. And when that happened, I began the series called The Convoluted Universe. It's now in the 3rd volume, has just come off the press, of The Convoluted Universe. And I say those are books for people who want their minds bent like pretzels, because they go off into a totally different way of looking at things, new theories that defy the imagination. And by the 3rd volume, I mean, the brain is really twisted around. But people say, even if they don't understand these theories and ideas, it makes them think. And we're beginning to understand a little bit more about where the ETs and the UFO phenomena is coming from. It's not simple anymore. It's very complicated. Those that try to keep it as a simple, ETs on UFOs, it's gone way beyond that. There's other dimensions, there's a whole other metaphysical part that they don't understand. John Mack once said, the only way to understand the UFO phenomena is to understand metaphysics. There's no way of separating the two. They go together and intermingle. So you're not going to be able to keep them apart. You've got to understand metaphysics, and it goes very close to quantum physics. A lot more involved here than the average person knows. Well, I was involved in normal hypnosis in the 1960s, which was 40 years ago. And then it was just all the very simple things, stop smoking, lose weight. And in those days, I stumbled into reincarnation by accident, if anything is ever an accident. And when I got over into that, that opened up a whole new way of thinking, a whole new avenue that I hadn't been exposed to before, that the possibility of past lives. I heard about it, but in those days, the only book out was The Search for Bridie Murphy. There weren't any books out to tell the investigator or hypnotist how to do these things. So I more or less have written my own rules since the beginning, because there was nobody to tell you what to do. So from the 60s, when I got into the simple part, I put it on the back burner for 10 years because I had a husband in a wheelchair for 25 years. He was almost killed in the Navy, and I had a family to raise. So I put it on the back burner until the 1970s. 30 years ago, I began to pick it up again. And that's when I decided I wanted to explore the past life phenomena, because the time travel was absolutely fascinating. And then over the 30 years, I've developed my own technique that I'm teaching all over the world. This technique allows you to tap into the higher conscious, the oversoul, the higher mind that has all of the answers. You tap into that, you can have instantaneous healings. You can have the answer to any question you want and any information you want. So when that opened up, that's where all the information began to pour out that I'm using in the books now. But the Bridie Murphy case, it was about her going back and reliving, and she had dates and names and places they could research in Ireland. But they met with a lot of ridicule, and they tried to discredit the man who did it, Maury Bernstein, and they went to great lengths to discredit him because he was opening up a whole new way of thinking that had never been allowed before. So they tried to push it under the rug. But it was a book for its time, and it made people begin to think. But like I said, today it'd be too simple. All right, that was true Lou Farish, if you know him. Lou Farish had the UFO news clipping service, and he was an investigator. He still is an investigator for many years, and he was working with MUFON, and then he went off on his own. And this was in the 80s, is when he asked me if I would come in as a hypnotist on some of the cases, because the MUFON people in Arkansas said they had people who thought they had had abduction experiences, but they didn't have anyone who could do the sessions with them. They tried a psychologist, and the psychologist would get the person under and begin to talking to them. They would have them on board the craft going into the experience, and the psychologist would wake them up. They'd say, I don't know what to do, I don't know what questions to ask. That's the worst possible thing you could ever do. That's not therapy. You start into something and then pull the person out of it. So when that happened, they said, would I come in and work with some of these people that they had? They said, we don't think it's going to bother you because you've been involved in the bazaar for so long. And it didn't, because I have a curiosity and this kind of thing doesn't scare me. So I began working on the cases with Lou Farish, mostly. MUFON was investigating some of them with me, but mostly it was me and Lou Farish. And he's always been my confidant all these times. I could bounce cases off of him, and you need somebody you can discuss things with. So it's been now 25 years, I guess, we have been working together and discussing cases. And we put on the UFO conference in Eureka Springs, and it's now in its 20th year. So that's how long I've been working with Lou. And we've just we always kept the people anonymous and protected their privacy, but it helped to have someone that you can discuss these cases with. So it's mostly been Lou, and he's the one I've been working with all this time. But I speak with UFO conferences and groups all over the world. Well, Bud Hopkins has been around for, that long. And Whitley Strieber came along later, after about the same time, but Bud Hopkins was doing it first. There was very few in those days that were doing it. In my early days, I wrote, my first books were dealing with past life regressions where the person was reliving history. And I hadn't got into these other things until, I guess I'd been doing it 10 years before I got into the UFO phenomena. But in Arkansas, there wasn't anybody. And very few people were doing it yet. Because, even the conference here, the one here in Laughlin, is only 17 years old. And remember, the first UFO conference we had in Arkansas, in Eureka Springs with Lou Farish, was 20 years ago. We only had less than 50 people there in one room, and it was mostly the people from Washington discussing the old Blue Book cases. So that was way back. Those people have probably died since then. But now it has grown to where we have about 500 people. We take over the whole convention center. So I've watched it grow and evolve over these years. The UFO experience is never as bad as they think it is. The ideal situation would be that the person never remember anything, because they have been coming since the beginning of time, since the beginning of Earth. They have been here from the very beginning. As in my books, it talks about how they were responsible for the recreation of life on Earth. And they've been taking care of us all that time and checking on us. So they said the ideal situation would be that the person never remember anything and go on with their life. But the problem is the additives in our food, the pollutants in our atmosphere, if the person is on any kind of medication, if they're on any kind of drugs or alcohol, this changes the chemistry of the brain, and it colors the chemistry of the brain. So if they had an experience, they are remembering it in a distorted fashion, not in the way it happened. Sometimes they'll have dreams, or they'll have bits and pieces that they remember, but they remember it in a distorted fashion. And because fear is the strongest emotion a human has, they will naturally be afraid of it. If you don't understand something, you're going to be afraid of it. So they color it with fear and this emotional response. So all naturally they think something bad has happened to them. But when I work with the person, I'm able to remove that conscious part and get to the real event, the real circumstance of what happened, and it's never what they think really happened. Once they find that out, they'll say, well, that wasn't so bad. I can live with that. So that's my job, is to make people understand these things. So the first thing I would say is don't think it is a negative experience. There's always an explanation for what's happening, and it's not near as bad as you think it is. Early in my work, when I was first doing the UFO phenomena and investigating the cases, when all of a sudden, during one case, I had, see, as long as they're in that fear base, they're reliving it from the emotional state. And the person was on board the craft, and they were very frightened, and we were talking. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling of energy going through my body, a tingling in energy. And the voice changed that was coming from the person, and they said, she's the one we're supposed to tell. And I didn't know what they were doing, but they said we were checking it out. So they said, all right, what do you want to know? And you never ask me, what do you want to know? Because I have such a tremendous curiosity. So they said, you have been given permission. We will answer any question you want. And that began the work that was the custodians, and the convoluted universe has followed from that. But it not for one person. It happens time and time again through all the people I work with. All I have to do is say to them, is there anyone there on the craft that you can ask questions? And immediately someone will come forth and they'll say, all right, what do you want to know? We can talk to you. Because they said, why give the information to just anybody? Give it to someone who's going to use it. And that's why they've allowed me to ask the questions and get the information. So I've been able to find just about anything you could ever want to know, from their propulsion system to where they live, what it's like on their planets, to why they are coming and what they are doing here. And it's amazing. And the theories I found are not like any other investigator out there. Okay, that makes it exciting. What's my life like? People say that I need to be cloned. They don't understand how I can do so much. Because I do write books. I have the 15 books, and I've just finished the new one, and I've got enough material to write 3 more. I wanted to take a month or so off. But I write the books. I see clients regularly. When I'm on the road, I see them wherever I am. But as a rule, I have an office in Arkansas where people come from all over the world to have sessions. So I'm doing the sessions. I'm also teaching classes of my technique all over the world. I travel constantly to all the different countries of the world and do lectures and expos and conventions. And then I'm also running my publishing company too. So I do quite a bit. And the publishing company, we have 20 other authors, and we are putting more and more books out all the time. It's the Ozark Mountain Publishing. And our list is growing. Our office space, we had to expand it this year, and we just built another new warehouse. So I'm involved with the business, with the teaching of the classes, with the traveling and the lecturing, seeing clients, and writing books. And I also have a weekly radio show, so there's a lot I do, and that's only scratching the surface anyway. We'll keep busy. My website. The name of the company is Ozark Mountain Publishing, so the website is abbreviated. It's www.ozarkmt.com. Or for anybody overseas, it's ozarkmt.com. That's my website. We also have an 800 number if people want to call in with that. 1-800-935-0045. But if you check on my website, all the books are there. My schedule of speaking engagements is on the website. My list of classes are also on the website. And if anyone wants to have a private session, they call the office or go through the website to schedule appointments. So you can contact everything through the website. Okay.